Hello and welcome to the Gooners podcast, season 5, episode 59. Boys, it's a big one today. Big show, mates. Got a great guest tonight, lads. Blokes, Owen, Jared, how you been doing?
I'm good. I'm kind of freaking out, though, because this transfer window in particular, I've actively made the effort not to follow too much. So I suppose that's not really a good idea when you're the co-host of a podcast that we're about to talk about transfers. So
nobody expects us.
This will be just as informative for me as it is for our listeners. So I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. Well, Jared, Governor, my mucka, how are things going for you?
Going pretty good. Good to see you guys as always. And
I'm a little happier than the last time you saw me.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm excited to talk transfers. I'm not sure that's justified given the way the month is gone, but still excited about it nonetheless.
I'm not excited to talk about transfers, but I am excited to talk about anything with Charles. So this man needs no introduction, but if he didn't have an introduction, I would serve absolutely no purpose on this show. So tonight we have with us the Arsenal correspondent from goal.com, the owner and chief executive officer of the YouTube channel called Charles Watts, Arsenal News from the Press Box. He is a generous supporter and donor to the award-winning Gooners versus Cancer charity, which I've heard some really good things about. We've brought him here to talk about Arsenal's recent performances. We've brought him here to talk about maybe a little bit of what the future holds, a little bit of wrestling maybe, and
yes, even transfers.
Welcome back to the Gooners podcast, Charles Watts. How mortified were you when I just did that? I apologize. No one likes.
I'm just more impressed with your technical skills, mate. To be fair, what's all this talk about transfers? I thought I was purely brought on here to talk about the Royal Rumble.
Well, we will get to that, and I was going to ask you this question later, but because I like to put you on the spot, I mean, is this the year that we're going to do a WrestleMania preview show, or is this about as low as you stoop to? Just coming on a regular Gooners podcast.
I don't know. I think we'll have to carry on talking about that as it builds up. Let's see who wins the Rumble first.
All right.
And yeah, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd be all over it, but now,
you'd be all over it. Holding a video game console probably and smashing it into the screen, if I remember correctly. So anyway, I'm gutted. Arsenal U21s have just been knocked out of the Papa John's trophy, and I'm upset because it's another title that another trophy that we've been knocked out over the last 2 weeks. And I was going to celebrate our win in April by purchasing a Papa John's and closing it down so I could eat it all. But anyway, how you been? It's been a few months since we last hung out.
Is it been that long?
Bust up on the motorway a couple of weeks ago. Is everything all right?
Yeah, my tire blew out on the way to Nottingham Forest. So it was an absolute nightmare. It was about 3 hours before kickoff, and I thought when I first did it, I was like, I've got a chance. I still might make the game, and I was still standing on the roadside at 10:30 that night up in Nottingham. Absolute shocker. It could have been worse, to be fair. I mean, I literally blew my tire on the motorway at about 70 miles an hour, so it could have been worse.
I thought you were going to say it could have been worse. I could have actually made it to the game.
Yeah, that is true. I could have made this game. Although I'm not sure what's worse, making it to the game or sitting on the side of on the motorway with your radio turned up, listening to Arsenal go out while standing in the dark, cold, and just a miserable day all round.
Yeah, no, not fun. We've obviously covered that one in depth. Speaking of not fun for you, it was fun for me, but it was great to meet you a few months ago at the Tolly. It really meant a lot to me that you came out. I know it was game day, and nice to share a Guinness or two with you. Here's the scene on the patio of the Tolly. You might recognize some of the folks in the background there, and that's really what I wanted to ask you about. What did you make of the shady individuals that I spend time with on a game day when I'm over in London? I mean, do you miss that scene as a journalist? I take it you don't go frequently. I feel honored.
I miss it massively, and this season more than any season, I'm really beginning to miss it. I mean, it's been, I don't know. For Arsenal, it's been 5 years, but then before that, I was doing Reading for the same amount of time. Before that, I was doing local football around here for the same amount of time. So, I sort of grew up. I mean, I'm still a season ticket holder. I can see, I literally look at my seat every game. It's just opposite me on the other side of the stadium. But my dad used it with someone else. My nephew was normally there. My niece was there on the weekend. And I'm really missing it this season. I don't know if it's because we've had the year or 6 months without fans in the stadium or something, but this year I've really started missing it even more than normal. Just the beers beforehand, beers afterwards.
Do you think that's because, Charles, and I've only been to one game, the Villa game that I went over to meet Mike for, And I actually felt that the atmosphere on game day around the Emirates has improved tenfolds. And do you think that maybe the reason you're missing it is because the atmosphere has improved so much? The feeling around the stadium, people are just happy to have football back.
I think so. I think that's definitely part of it. And I think also this team is a team that you actually genuinely like. And I think it's been a long time as an Arsenal fan that we've had a team that you actually really sort of connect to and like, and there's individuals in it. Obviously you always support the team, but for how many years has it been now? And you really wouldn't be too bothered if a lot of the players left the club, would you? But it's different with this team. I think they're young, you can get behind them, and like I said, the atmosphere home and away has been better this season than I can remember in a long, long time. There's the genuine connection between the fans and this team. And yeah, I think that probably plays part of it. I think also it's the fact my son's like 5 now; he's going to be 6 soon, and it's only a couple of years on from that I started going with my dad. Like I started being a season ticket holder in '89. I was 8 then. And I think the older he gets, and like he's in the Arsenal kits and everything, the older he gets, the more I keep thinking, I'm not going to be able to do that with him. I'm not going to be able to take him every game because I'm there in the press box. And I think that's playing on my mind more this year.
Well, make sure you figure out a way to do that.
I'm just really, really longing for it. I'm starting to miss it a lot more, the actual just being in the stands.
Figure out a way to do that, because there is nothing. I mean, my ability to bring my son and really my entire family, but I mean, my son as the closest to most regular person into my Arsenal obsession, both by coming to me coming with me to games in London, watching them here. It's just, I mean, there's nothing like it in the world, and I didn't have that with my father, so I certainly love seeing fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, fathers, mothers and sons, whatever. I mean, whatever the combination is, the generational pass of Arsenal is incredible. I thought maybe more people were going and having a good time at pubs because that was really the only good part of the day for a while. They just knew that they had to cram in the fun before they went to the game, because then the game was going to leave them. But I think we're starting to break out of that. Owen was there the week before you. You missed him by a week, and I think it was because Owen has something in his contract with us that he has to be the second most famous person at the pub, and he knew that if you were there, he would be notched down to the third spot.
It's just that myself and Charles are so attractive. It would be unfair to everybody else to bring that kind of energy into one place. I had to give Charles his moment.
Very, very true.
So we'll wrap up the reminiscing about the Tollington. But yeah, have you ever been to an event, or you've bought a service or something that you've consumed in the economy, and then you get this email survey asking you for a quick 3-question survey about your experience? I'd like to ask you if you mind taking 60 seconds to have a 3-second survey about your visit to the Tollington on November 7th, 2021.
Go for it.
Okay. Question number 1. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much fatter was I than you expected? I mean, you've seen the upper part of my body, but we'd never actually, So
11.
Yeah, no, 1. Well, tell me.
Okay. Because I may just continue to go out like this instead of actually coming around like this for all people who see me on television now. Okay. Question number 2. In the approximate hour that you spent in the Tollington pattern with me and my mates, how many minutes in did you start thinking your career was over?
None. What are these questions about? None at all.
Questions about making me look like a jackass, which is my favorite pastime. Question number 3.
I don't want to leave. I don't want to go to the press room.
On a scale from 1 to 2, is it true that you wrote your game report for that game before it started so you could keep going with the Guinnesses at the Emirates? You don't have to answer that question.
I think I certainly started. I did honestly. Everyone was laughing at me when I got in, because I sat in the press room. I was like, I've just had a couple. I really can't be bothered with this at all now. Just wanted to just carry on. So yeah, that's another reason why I don't do it before the games anymore. So it's not ideal getting in there having a couple. It was early kickoff as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of those. I think it was a 12:30. No, it was a Sunday, so maybe it was a 2.
What game was it? I can't remember.
It was Watford.
Oh God, yeah, it wasn't a great game, was it?
No, it was not the best game in the world. But anyway, enough reminiscing. It was fun. I appreciate it, and thanks for being a good sport with my stupid comedy. So, if you're in the chat, please put your questions in the chat. Owen and Jared are going to be kind of highlighting comments and questions. But if there's a question that you want Charles to answer, we're gonna definitely cover as many of those as we can at the end. Hopefully, nothing repetitive. So, if you make them unique, if you make them, flattery of the hosts will get you everywhere. So please put those in the chat and we can mark them and answer them later. So before we get on to transfers, can we just say that Arsenal's January has been about as dire as it possibly could be? I mean, awful. I don't see how anyone could say that there wasn't some way that we could have been better prepared for, after New Year's Day, 4 games in 2 weeks, regardless of the Liverpool chicanery, knowing AFCON was going on, knowing that injuries are always an issue this time of year, and by that I mean for Arsenal all times of year. No goals scored, 2 cups knocked out of, now 3 if you include the Papa Johns. A complete loss of momentum that the team had going on, and I mean, how is this excusable, Charles?
Well, it's not really excusable, I don't think. I think there's certainly mitigating circumstances to it that have to be taken into account. I mean, the squad's been, we know it's been decimated. There's been barely any training done for a long time. And I think you could really tell, certainly in the Liverpool second leg at the Emirates, you could really tell that with some of the players like Tomiyasu, for example, who was clearly nowhere near ready and shouldn't have been playing really, but they had no other option. A right back certain rushing back and it cost him. So yeah, I mean, it's not really excusable. I think certainly the Ainsley Maitland-Niles deal at the time, as soon as that was going through, I think we all thought this is quite odd. The timing of it, it's like, yeah, fair play, let them go at the end of January, no issue with that. But you kind of knew what was going to happen with AFCON and losing Thomas Partey. You thought, you're probably best waiting till the end of the window. And I mean, it certainly panned out that way. I think he would have started all 4 of Arsenal's last games, wouldn't he? Had he stayed and been really key to that, and it would have meant they could have carried on with a 4-2-3-1 formation instead of having to go to this 4-3-3 that hasn't worked at all. And so I think you look at that, it looks a bad decision at the time. It looks a totally baffling one now, and I think that's cost them. So there's certainly, they have to take the blame for an awful lot of that as well. But I do think, yeah, there's certainly some mitigating circumstances. And when you look back to the Man City game, I mean, it all started so well, didn't it? I think there's such a big sliding doors moment in this. It's that Gabriel Martinelli miss when they'd just equalised at 1-1, and then Martinelli had the open goal and he hit the post. And 30 seconds later, Gabriel got sent off, and then Arsenal go on and lose that game. And Martinelli scored that. I do wonder how January would have panned out. It just feels like a really big sliding doors moment because there's so much momentum with Arsenal then. And I think
Arsenal's just full. That's a great comment. Arsenal's life is just full of sliding doors moments. Sometimes it works out in our favor, like in in 1989, and then sometimes it just seems to constantly be the opposite of that.
But do you not think that, and believe it or not, Charles, that Arsenal fans do have a tendency to overreact at times? But for argument's sake, I understand that the League Cup is something that has evaded us for a long time, and that the FA Cup is our bread and butter and we pride ourselves. But, and maybe I'm being a positive moron in a sense, but when you actually step back and look, what is our objective this season? It's to get back into Europe, and we're sitting, even for how horrible January is, as bad as it feels, I think we're actually quite lucky when you take a step back and look at the landscape that we're in. Yes, the Burnley result wasn't great, but we're relatively unscathed, with Tottenham dropping points against Chelsea. I think we're only 2 points off the top 4 or something like that. The gap isn't that big, especially with games in hand. Do you really think that, like, people are talking about this top 4 push being over potentially? Do you think that there's an overreaction to a sense with that, or do you think that maybe it's just the lack of signings or heaping pressure on top of that?
I think the window comes into it. I think everyone wants signings, don't they? I mean, certainly it depends what we're talking about here. If we're talking about social media, then it gets whipped up into a frenzy at the best of times, let alone in the transfer window. And when results aren't going your way at the same time, then it's just going to be amplified even more. And it's definitely, there's definitely an overreaction. I mean, look, as you said, for the start of the season, Arsenal's priority is to get themselves back into Europe. I don't even think it was to get themselves back into the Champions League. It was just to make sure you get yourselves back into the Europa League and then go from there. And they've given themselves a really good chance at the top 4, and they've still got a really good chance at the top 4. It was just a case of getting through this month. The Burnley game felt big because it just feels like a missed opportunity. I agree. It didn't prove too costly with what happened at Chelsea straight afterwards, but it was an opportunity to get those points on the board and move, have have a bit of a swing in terms of points, and they didn't take it against the bottom club, and that was a shame. Before the game, you knew how it was going to pan out. It felt like that Watford game we just spoke about. It was just a case of get a 1-0 any way you can, get into this break, come back from it stronger when everyone's available at the end of this break. And it just felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. But it's not far from the end of the world. It's absolutely not the end of the world.
That Watford game was at the end of a fairly good run. I mean, it started with Palace, which was underwhelming, but then, a fairly good run. And all of a sudden, Watford, it was just like, okay, now we're in the mode where we're getting the job done. It doesn't always have to be pretty. And Jared, from seeing me on Sunday after FA Cup, and that's the most angry I've been after a game in a long time. I don't generally get angry because I'm constantly looking at, well, we lost this game. Let's widen it out over like a 6-game span, and we're really not doing that badly. But I was perfectly willing and ready to just completely absolve the team of the Liverpool and Nottingham Forest situations under the assumption that we were still the team that was putting in shifts and just rising to the occasion in the Premier League. And then what I saw was a team that just didn't rise to the occasion, didn't have a game plan for a team that how they play. They did it very well against us, but, crossing the ball against Burnley isn't necessarily the way to work. So I was more angry about that game than I have been in a long, long time, because it was just like, it just completely undoes everything, the ability to just mentally rise to an occasion. So, Jared, I mean, your thoughts on that? Because I know that you weren't happy after the Burnley game either. But
yeah, I'm with you. In general, I'm about as positive of an Arsenal fan as you'll find, or at least a silver linings type of guy. And it's tough to take much away from that one. It's just the top 4 race is far from over. We're 2 points off of 4th with a game in hand. So it's not over by any means. So
that's the game we're going to look at if we miss out. Those kinds of games. That kind of game, the Brighton game.
2 points dropped, come the end of the season, those 2 points may look, pretty important. We hope not. And really this month, I think it was just a combination of that on top of the rest of the month of January, where the only positive thing that's happened for us is that we happen to have 2 Premier League games scheduled and no more than that, because it's been not great the last month, but December was fantastic. So you can see a dramatic shift from month to month. And, the hope now is that we see it go back the other direction. Once the window closes, the guys have a bit of a break and we're back strong for Wolves.
So let's hope that all happens. And let's get into transfers, because I know, trust me, we're seeing your chats. We're marking them. We're going to be answering these questions, and let's get into that now. The one thing I like about the transfer window.
Can I just say a disclaimer here before we get into it? There's really not that much happening.
Yeah, I think.
I would love to sit here right now and say, yeah, we are. It is going to be one hell of a ride these next 6 days, but I'm not convinced.
You're not breaking any news on the Gooners podcast tonight.
Not tonight, I have to say. I'm not convinced we're going to be. I think we'll probably definitely see one come in, but I don't think it's going to be the most exciting of signings. Possibly 2, but we'll see.
Was that worrying, Charles, when you heard? I was just going to ask Charles if it was worrying. Like, did that change your mind when you heard Mikel Arteta say that we'll hope to do business, but we'll have to see that we're not? Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that he isn't really confident on getting deals over the line because the market's so difficult.
Not particularly, just because that's kind of what managers say, isn't it? All the time they hedge their bets so they don't end up looking a bit stupid. But Arsenal have been trying, but it's just really difficult. Every time in January, it's just not an easy window at all. And it sounds cliche, but it's not. And it's especially when you're looking at the kind of positions that Arsenal are looking to improve. They're looking at 2 very specific positions at the moment, as well as a goalkeeper who, that looks like it's probably going to happen before the end of the window. But centre midfield and striker, and they're not 2 positions that you want to panic in if you can't get your main target in January, which is hard because it's hard to get quality players out of other clubs in January. You don't want to panic and then leave yourselves in a situation when you get to the summer and you're stuck with a player that you didn't really want in the first place, on big wages who you can't then shift. So unless you can get on a loan that can get you through to the summer, which Arsenal have been trying, certainly with a midfielder, it's a difficult one. So as much as I know fans are desperate for it to happen and stuff, I do think when you're looking for a striker especially, you can't panic, can you? You cannot go out because no striker's cheap.
So
do you think that?
Don't pose the question Isaac news with a question with 4 question marks at the end.
No, but what I was going to ask is, and I think this is a fair question, and to an extent I'm playing devil's advocate, but I definitely sort of back this question, and that's that striker and central midfield. If you look at the striker position with Aubameyang being exiled and apparently him not going to Dubai, that would almost indicate that he's essentially got no way back, and that's even if he wants to come back himself. I think with the contract situations with Nketiah and Lacazette, so the striker position isn't an area that I just think we need one player and we need multiple players. And I think you could argue that central midfield is very much the same. And whilst we mightn't be able to get, let's say, a Dusan Vlahovic, I think maybe he's away to Juventus now by the look of things, but we can still go and get the backup. You know, we can still go and get, we don't need Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we don't need Isaac, but we can go and we can get somebody who will be replacing Eddie Nketiah further down the line, or somebody who will be replacing Mohamed El-Neni further down the line. Do you think it's fair that people are getting frustrated that there's no active effort to even build the squad, let alone the starting 11?
I think there's an active effort going on. I just don't think they've been able to get hold of their targets. You say go out and get a replacement for Eddie, but I mean, I don't know who do you go and get in that situation? For me, I think you're right. I think Arsenal need at least 2 forwards, and if you can just bring forward what you're going to do in the summer and do some of it now, then absolutely that'd be ideal. I think they've been, obviously the Aubameyang situation has kind of come out of the blue. They weren't planning for that at the start of this, and it was a case of they were going to at least have Auba through to the end of the season with Laka, which they probably thought would be enough, and then they could sort it out in the summer. The Auba situation has messed everything up, and that's fast-tracked the need for a striker now, which is why they've been trying. And they have been trying, there's no doubt about it. And I still think, there is a chance they will do something, but I'm not sure it would be a backup now. I think they would, if they were going to get someone now, they'd go out and get the main striker now and they get the backup in the summer, I think. And they could do. I mean, we've seen the names that are doing the rounds at the moment. You've got your Calvert-Lewins, you've got your Isaacs. Isaac kind of feels like the most attainable one just because of that release clause. I mean, it's a hell of a lot of money, and Mikel is going to have to be his most convincing best with Stan over in Denver the next couple of days to convince him to part with the sort of money he'll need to get. Where do
you think Andy is right now? My podcast co-founder Andy is in Denver, as he always is, and
you get a glass against the wall.
He's on his way there. I was actually very upset last night that he didn't go to the Avalanche game, because had he gone and seen Arteta, I think the gerbil might have broke the news that he was there rather than the traditional sources. And if you are in the chat and you heard Charles say that there might not be that much news and you're considering leaving, don't, because in addition to Charles, we also have a famous ITK in this as well, who is going to basically tell you the 8 players that we are signing. So after Charles leaves, we'll have a moment with the gerbil. But
the striker situation, I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I just think it's going to be difficult because look, they like Calvert-Lewin, that's well known, but Everton are 16th in the Premier League. They're not.
Yeah, they're not going to sell one of their best assets. Yeah.
The fans are already.
They're not going to pull Burnley and sell their one good asset.
Imagine you sell Calvert-Lewin now. I mean, literally be a full-blown riot at Goodison. And Jonathan David, a player they've tracked for an awful long time, who I think you could almost look at, as you were talking there, Ewan, about possible the sort of backup. And David's a very good player. He wouldn't want to come just as a backup, but I think I think if they were going to get 2 strikers, they would get an out-and-out centre forward, and then someone who can play in a sort of out wide and forward role and David ticks that, and they like him a lot. But from what I understand, there's not really any chance that's going to be happening this window. It'll be the summer. He wants to stay till summer, and a lot of players want to do that. But Isaac, that release clause does open up the possibility of a Thomas Partey type last deadline day move for him. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on, I think, unless you can get a really smart loan in between now and the end of the season. But that's, I think I've seen Jovic mentioned, and I'm not sure if there's anything in that. I've certainly not heard there's anything in that at the moment. And people that I've spoken to over in Spain, close to Madrid, they seem to think that Madrid wouldn't really be considering letting him go anyway. So I'm not sure that's a go at this stage anyway. So it's going to be difficult, but I think they've got to get something done. It's either reintegrate Auba and try and bring him back in, which the way the history of Arteta, it doesn't seem like it's something he would be very willing to do.
Can you make a statement signing like, I mean, and whether you consider Isaac as a statement player or not, 76 million transfer fee and wages certainly is a statement signing. Can you do that while not knowing whether you're going to be able to get Aubameyang off the books as of this summer? I mean, if he's around for another 2 years,
what the owner says, doesn't it?
I mean, if it's another Ozil situation, I mean, we got lucky in the Ozil situation in the sense that Smith Rowe rose from the ashes, or not from the ashes, but and it suddenly made him go away in a sense. And I don't know that we have that with any. Balogun doesn't seem to be that guy. If anybody is, it's Martinelli, but I prefer him on the wing.
You have to go out and sign a replacement for Robbie. You can't look to the youth. There's just no one coming through who can go there and be your centre. I think we all hoped that Eddie might do that, but it's pretty clear that Eddie's not going to be that man. It's been clear for a while that he's not going to be that man. So you got to go out and spend big money if you're replacing Auber, especially if you're banishing him. Can you replace
him as long as he's just banished rather than gone?
But see, Mike, I think something that Edu and Arteta have I think earned is, I'm not sure about everybody else on the panel or in the chat, but definitely from me, is a sense of trust. It doesn't have to be the glamorous signing. It doesn't have to be a £70 million signing. With the likes of Ramsdale and Tommy Astu and Ben White and whoever, they've earned the right to go and spend the money where they want to spend the money. So I'm not saying that I'm expecting a Vlahovic coming in for 70 odd million or whoever, name any player for big money, but do something, make an active effort to go and get somebody. It doesn't need to be the bells and whistles player that everybody wants, but just make an active effort to go and fill those gaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think they've given the league table as well and the opportunity they've got of getting themselves in the top four this season. If they're ever going to be aggressive in the transfer market and really go out and try and do something, it should be now. Because, yes, even if you do go and spend an awful lot of money, 50, 60, 70 million pounds, if they get you into the top four this season, then that money's going to be paid back like that, basically, just from getting back in the Champions League. And what that's going to do to sort of kick on the rebuild, getting back in the Champions League is, just be huge.
This could be like the Petr Cech window all over again, couldn't it? Just such a missed opportunity.
It got mentioned in the chat. It got mentioned in the chat a couple of times, and I know we touched on Arteta being in the U.S., being seen at the game with Kroenke. Do you have any insight? Is that something that was pre-planned, that he was going to spend some time with them prior to the team going to Dubai? I know kind of all the Arsenal fans want to read too much into everything, so the kind of rumor going around is, well, he wouldn't need to fly to the U.S. to sign off on an Artur loan. If he's there, he's trying to convince him of something bigger. Do you put any stock in that, or do you think this is more something that could have been pre-planned and just sort of regular communication between the parties?
I think it was probably pre-planned that he was going out there. I mean, I didn't know about it. I don't think anyone knew about it, but I spoke to people at Arsenal about it today, and they said it was just because he's not had the opportunity to do it basically for the last 2 years, and this was the first opportunity he's really had to go out there. He's had some time. He'll be going on to Dubai afterwards. And it was just a good opportunity for a proper face-to-face chat with him. I was told that he didn't go over there for any specific topic, but, everything would have been discussed when he was over there. I know a lot of people were saying this morning, this will be contract talks and things like that. But I'm told it was definitely not just for one specific topic, like getting a new contract. But all of that, you think are going to be would be on the table. And he's not going over there just to go and admire Kroenke house, is he? He's definitely going over there to try and convince him to part with some cash to get this squad up and running. So I think
it might be a barbecue, because we've heard the story. We've heard the stories about barbecues where like the Pepe signing was, and the funding for it was sealed over a barbecue with what's his name, the guy the gerbil sack.
Instagram, if there was a barbecue going on.
Yeah. Well, that was my next point. Like the barbecue where Pepe was signed, the barbecue where Lukonga was signed at Edu's house. I mean, it's always barbecues. So look, the more barbecues, the better. If it means that we sign players. But thank you, Daniel. By the way, Daniel, I was going to mention this later, but since you've been generous enough to do a super chat, Daniel Bailey, I believe, is a destination that you'll be popping up on tomorrow, Charles, as well. Daniel's a good friend of ours.
1 o'clock.
Fantastic Gooner, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, And let's use his super chat as an opportunity to transition from the striker talk into something that everybody in the chat is talking about, mostly because really the news kind of just came across about Newcastle's bid for Bruno Guimaraes, or Guimaraes,
Nailed it.
Guimaraes. I don't know. But I mean, what do you know about the situation? Is there any thought being given other than keeping our fingers crossed that Xhaka can behave and Partey doesn't get hurt, of us getting through the next 17 league games with the midfield we currently have?
Well, I mean, they've been trying to get the deal for Arthur over the line for a while now, so they do want a midfielder. They know they need one, but it hasn't happened yet.
That's purely a loan?
Sorry, that's just a loan, yeah. And I think they would look to sign a more long-term target in the summer. They'll definitely sign a midfielder in the summer. Imagine they'll spend pretty big on one. I mean, I've reported that they like Tielemans, and they've been, they've held talks with Tielemans' agents. I think Tielemans' agents doing the rounds at the moment, sort of setting the scene for a big summer bid off between plenty of clubs for him, and only have a year left on his contract. And Arsenal want to be at least in the mix for that, and have been speaking to him to sort of make sure they will be in the mix for that. And in terms of Bruno, I don't know if any of you have watched Encanto, but when I'm just saying Bruno now, I can't get it out of my head. I've seen my kids, I've watched it like 70 times in the last 2 months. In terms of him, I mean, look, he's a player who's been linked with Arsenal so many times from just constantly. And there has been interest there. I mean, Arsenal do like him. They've watched him. But in terms of signing him this window, I haven't heard anything to suggest that they've tried to do that. He's just one that they've been looking at. And
why does that happen though? Like it just seems to make so much sense. Now I know a lot of things make a sense to Arsenal fans when it comes to players that they want, and then sometimes they go someplace else and kill it. Sometimes they go someplace else and they're like, well, I'm glad we dodged a bullet there. But I'm hearing nothing but admiration for this player. And unlike a Renato Sanchez, who they're like, yeah, but he gets hurt and has these deficiencies and so on, he seems like the perfect buy and someone that isn't going to be staying very long at where he is. So,
but then again, you say that, but the only club that's bid for him in this window is Newcastle, and he's available.
That said, I have no clue about the player at all, other than he's got a cool name.
And people aren't exactly banging the door down for him. I mean, Leon, it's been pretty known that he's there if you want to pay for him, and clubs aren't banging the door down for him. And I don't know too much. I still can't get Encanto out of my head. I can't say his name without thinking about it. I haven't seen him. I can't say I'm a Bruno expert, but he looks like a decent player. He's Brazilian. He's got the links with Edu, and so it does tick a lot of boxes. You think if Arsenal wanted to get that deal done, they could have got it done by now, but for one reason or another, they've chosen not to do that. And so there must be something there that's stopping them, because he's been around on the agenda for a while, and they haven't done it. I mean, but there's so many players. I see everyone get hit up over players, and it's like, oh, why haven't we signed him? He's gone this way to be brilliant, and then he turns out they don't do anything elsewhere. So.
Well, and then it's out of sight, out of mind. Oh, I never said that I wanted that player.
If he does go to Newcastle and he kills it, then it'll be frustrating, and it'll be one that a lot of fans will talk about. But there's no guarantee that he'll do that, and there's no guarantee he'll go to Newcastle anyway. I'm not sure if there's plenty of clubs sniffing around, and certainly for the summer, if he'll think Newcastle's an absolute goer. But that's just me. I mean, do you want to go into a Premier League relegation battle now when you're at Lyon and you can have interest in the summer? Maybe not. I don't know.
Newcastle's
been
one
basically going to midfield players in the championship next year for sure.
Exactly. And there's still 6 days to go. If Eddie decides that he does want to finally put some money down the table and bring him in, then maybe it will happen. But it's not something that I've heard of. I think certainly now, if you ask me who's a more likely signing between now and deadline day in midfield, if Arsenal are going to do it, I certainly think it'd be Arthur. And they've had his agent's been at the training ground. Coney flew over. They want to get that deal done. Arthur, from what I understand, people I've spoken to, who's very close to him, absolutely wants to move to Arsenal. He's got his heart set on it. Arsenal like him. It's just a case of getting that deal done. If Juventus can get a replacement in, and and they can agree. I think there's talk that Juve want an 18-month loan rather than just a 6-month loan. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but it seems to, other people have reported that. And if that is the case, then Arsenal will have a decision to make there if they really want to get it over the line.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's crazy is that all you can think of when you talk about Bruno is this movie character. Arthur
That's
was
the line. Do you know what I'm talking about? Even that line.
I just looked it up because I'm not a dad of a young child. I'm a dad of teenagers now and adults. But Arthur was the name of a goddamn cartoon character in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he was an aardvark. And I mean, at this point, why are we looking at cartoon characters when we're fighting for the Champions League? I mean, it's ridiculous. And then there's Vlahovic, the wildebeest that we were looking at signing. That's done, right? I mean, can we just say that that's done?
Yeah.
What's that? Vlahovic.
I mean,
I think so. Yeah, well, just.
And I want to say,
Romeo's the Juventus correspondent at Goal. Romeo Gresta, he's very good, and he thinks it's all agreed. Everything's agreed. It's just a case of getting over the line now. It happened very quickly, that didn't it? In the space of one night.
I want to point out
of Locatelli all over again, don't it?
Yeah, it does. I want to point
out.
I've
never heard. The whole Vlahovic one was a weird one. Like I never reported it because everyone that I'd spoke to about it had always. I'd never had any confidence that it was going to happen. And people at Arsenal that I spoke to ages ago, and it carried on was. So we're not really serious contenders for him. So it was a weird one for me because there was so much noise about it. Pete was being reported, but when people I was speaking to was kind of were quite cold on it and thought it's just not. It didn't really feel like it was one that they thought was actually going to happen in January. So I'm not sure how much was noise and how much was actually real in terms of Arsenal's interest and if there were any bids because it's not something that I'd really heard the whole way through the window.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have to. I mean, if you're going to watch anything about transfers, you watch Charles Watts' YouTube channel because I was going to point out you've been saying the whole time that there was really nothing to this, and I believe now you're here to say that everyone else is in the mud. Apparently, I mean that's an expression that the kids are using these days because Vlahovic isn't coming to the carpet. But yeah, I mean, you've been pretty consistent on that. So, take a lap. It's frustrating, but that's exactly what transfer windows are all about. Is there's going to be a name that half the people are saying it's completely legit, talking about unanswered phone calls and that sort of thing. And then the other half's like, there's really not much to it in the first place. Some players just don't want to leave their country. Some German or Bundesliga players just want to go to Bayern. Some Italian or players from Serie A just want to play for Juventus. And, frankly, Arsenal, for a 21-year-old, you're not growing up thinking Arsenal's a great big club. And that doesn't just go back to Arteta and Edu. It goes back for 14 years. Dude started watching Arsenal probably, if he did at all, when 2008, when Rosicky was out with a calf injury and we were struggling to finish fourth, with silly players playing for us. And there's a reason that a lot of players aren't aching for a move to AC Milan anymore. They're all going to Juve. Why is that? Because
but there's such a difference, I think, and it proves in the mentality of the players when they arrive, and that was always my issue with the Vlahovic deal, is the fact that if this deal was going to happen, as certain people were claiming, that there was a level of persuasion needed, that we really needed to lure him and convince him and this and that. Whereas when you see Aaron Ramsdale first interview, he said from the minute that he got wind that Arsenal were interested, he wanted to go straight away. And I think when people want to play for the club, when their sole intentions is to make the club better rather than being sort of more self-centered, like a player like I think potentially Vlahovic would have been. We just would have been a stepping stone for a player like that. I think it sort of pays dividends when you actually invest in people that want to be here and not people that take a lot of convincing.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of red flags on it, weren't there, from the start? I mean, clearly they were interested in him because his goal record speaks for itself. Every club will be looking at him and interested in him. But I think certainly the impression that I got, that people at the club were well aware that it was pretty unlikely that it was going to be happening. And I think it's just like social media as well. You know, it just whips it into a further. There's just everyone posting links, foreign links to stories that the translation doesn't work out, and it's just like every 20 minutes there's a new one going. It's like, oh, we've bid for him, we've offered him this huge amount of money, and it's just, you know, they're not really sourced. They don't know where it's coming from or what the translation exactly says, and it just whips everything into a frenzy. And then when it doesn't happen, it's something like, oh, Arsenal have missed out on this player, and it doesn't always work like that. You know, it's just not always. It's not always been like that. So yeah, it's just a transfer window. It's the madness of the transfer window, isn't it?
But you know what? We can all agree now that Vlahovic is overhyped and not that good, and we never wanted him anyway.
Exactly.
He's no Nketiah.
But you know, the ITK should really, you know, to sort themselves out. But the thing that's the problem with the internet during the transfer window and the number of people that you know, that get involved with it is
easy to take part.
And never, and no one.
When's that stupid picture going to fall over? You got that
one. I wasn't going to use that one, but someone already asked about it in the chat. You know, I'm such a dick. I mean, look, I really enjoy communicating with and the occasional banter and touching base between Charles and I, but I'm going to screw it all up because I asked him to do something nice for my charity. He records a video out of the goodness of his heart, and now I'm playing clips from it 9 months later as comedy bits. I want you to know that I love and respect you, and that I just have a mental problem. So
definitely,
yeah, because you know I don't want to lose your support because
thank you so much for your support.
All right, that's the last one. I promise that's the last one. All right. So let's go to something very important, which is the Royal Rumble, and then we'll get to your user questions, which will dip us back into.
Just before we go on to the Royal Rumble, which is clearly the most important part of this chat.
It'll be 3 minutes. I don't leave.
Matt Turner. That's a signing that I think definitely going to happen. Well, not definitely. I don't know. I hate saying that word because if it doesn't happen, then suddenly it's you're in the mud, as you would say. But that's the one certainly from what people that I spoke to, it seems like that's the one that's closest to happening, and he could potentially end up joining the rest of the squad in Dubai if everything gets done for him. I think that's furthest down the line out of all of them, and I'd certainly be more confident of that happening than anything else at the moment. I mean, that's not one that's going to excite the fans and quell the unrest or anything like that, but I think I think that's the one that's most likely to happen at this stage. And again, I'm no expert when it comes to him. I'm sure you probably know more than me about what he's like, but I think you certainly would suggest that means that Leno will be on his way sooner rather than later, but if he does all right.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of fee we can generate for him. I mean, he's one actual sellable asset in my mind that you know, probably not more than we sold Emmy for, but probably not less, wouldn't you think?
Well, they spent 25 to get him 3 years ago. Maybe 2 years left on his contract. Well, no, it's 1 year left. So it's 18 months, isn't it? 1 year left in the summer. I'm not sure you're going to get 20 million for him now. I think you're probably looking more around the 15 million mark. I would say maybe. And it depends if there's a market out there for him at the moment. But you would think if they're bringing in Turner now and not in the summer, then they've probably got some idea that someone's going to come in for him in the next few days. He's out in Dubai already, though. A lot of the players have been given 3 days off. They start the training camp on Thursday, and a lot of the players have already got out and sort of started their holiday basically before the training camp starts, and Burnt's over there already. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming days, because he might have to end up having to leave there.
It's not true that they went to Dubai specifically to pick up Willian, right? I mean, like he's not there again, is he?
No, he's not. Okay. He's gone.
Because I know he loves it there, and he went there when he was with us. So I just
he went to Salt Bay's restaurant, didn't he?
Oh Lord. Okay, so all right, so Royal Rumble. Charles and I share a very although he's outgrown it, and I haven't. I keep trying to pull him back in. But any predictions on the Royal Rumble? Do you know what's going on? Owen's leaving.
I'm not sure. Big E maybe. I'm not entirely sure who's going to win it this year. Like I said, I'm a little bit out of touch with it at the moment. I'm always just more intrigued by who the surprise entrants are going to be. Like, I think my favourite moment in wrestling in recent years was when Edge came back. What, 3 years ago was it?
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
That Rumble is just absolutely brilliant.
My favorite moment in wrestling was just last Wednesday when this happened.
Was very good. Waking up and seeing your messages on WhatsApp, seeing those pictures did make me laugh.
I mean, look, in life you have to have some fun. And I like to mix my Goonerdom with silliness, and what you see on Twitter when you just search for like wrestling and Arsenal and you see the tweets about the two of them together, it's hilarious because it's half people like, oh, like big up to the guy with the Arsenal fan, and then it's half just people just absolutely slaughtering me. Unfortunately, this was about 3 hours after Spurs came back and scored those 2 goals in like the 191st minute to beat Leicester. But the one thing I have to say is if you are a fan of a football club and you see another rival football club person and you agree to take a picture like this, you need help. You don't get anything in life unless you ask. But how is this guy agreeing to take this picture with me? I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. But that's what I do. I embarrass people. So, all right, let's spend the last 13 minutes or so of our hour talking about the transfer questions. If you have a question, please put it in chat. We want you to be able to participate. This is your chance to ask Charles. And again, if you're just asking about Isaac, Guimaraes, Vlahovic, if you're just asking what the likelihood is of them coming, you've already gotten your answer on that, really. So we've got Zig T, who was asking about that before he answered. Here's a good question. So make it original and make it something that that can actually be answered. An opinion question from Divion. If we won all of our January matches and we're sitting pretty in the Champions League, now he means in the top 4, and really we only had the 2 January matches. I guess we got 1 point out of 6 in those. If we won those and we were clear in 4th place, would it be any easier to sign these transfers given kind of players not wanting to come to a team without Champions League security?
I don't think so. It wouldn't be that much of a difference, would it? And it's still half a season to go. So no, I don't think so. Especially when you look at the players that Arsenal are wanting to get and you hear what Arteta's saying. It's not just, he doesn't just want squad players now. He wants players that are going to take the teams to the next level. And when you sign a central midfielder and a striker, then I don't think getting an extra 4 points during the month is going to make much of a difference in that, in terms of convincing them. So no, I can't imagine it would have made any difference, to be honest.
Okay. We've got a question from Daniel Robert. Now, before Arsenal correspondence, you did have some experience covering Reading FC. And so Daniel wants to ask, can you cover what's going on at Reading FC? Kia at the center, by the looks of it, similar to Arsenal. I don't really know the background behind this, but I'm guessing you might have some insight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame what's going on at Reading FC. I was leaving when this was all sort of kicking off and the new owners had come in, and it's a tough one legally to talk about, to be honest, when it comes to Kia. So it's a difficult one for me, but it's a shame. I mean, it's just what happens, I think, when you got owners who don't really know too much about football and they trust other people to make decisions for them, and they don't have proper football people in the proper high positions at a football club, then it's going to lead to trouble. And unfortunately, that's what's happened at Reading. They spent an awful lot of money. They've brought a lot of players in. Those transfers have benefited a lot of people, but not the football club, and they're paying the price for it now, which is a shame. And hopefully, they can survive the season. They can sort themselves out, but financially, that club's in a bit of a mess. And wind the clock back 10 years, and it was one of the most stable football clubs you can get in England, and now it's very much not the case now because of a lot of bad decisions by people who haven't really had the club's best interest at heart, really. I don't really think it's similar to Arsenal, to be honest, because for their faults, the Cronkies, I wouldn't, that I think they kind of know what's going on, and you look at what the success and the other franchises they've got, they're proper sports people, whether you like them or not, they kind of are. And so I don't think it's very similar to Arsenal. Obviously, Kia's kind of been in and around both clubs, but that's about as far as it goes, I would say. I mean, Reading, the mess that Reading are in, it's just nothing like what's going on at Arsenal at the moment. Arsenal.
And therefore, we've just sent a player out on loan to them, right?
Yeah, Carl Hein has gone there. Hopefully, he has a successful loan like Emi Martinez did, because Martinez went there and basically kept him up the second half of that season and was brilliant, and that kind of started Emi's upward trajectory in his career. And hopefully, I mean, Carl's going there a lot younger. He's only a 19-year-old kid. Whether he plays remains to be seen there, but it's going to be an interesting one. Hopefully, he's just down the road from me. So when Emi was there, I'll pop down there and do a big interview with Emi at the training ground. So hopefully, I might be able to do that with Carl in the next few months.
Outstanding. All right, we've got some more questions here. Let's. Yo-Yo has a question, which is Arsenal haven't recouped much money under Edu, with Willock being an outlier. Is he or Dick Garlick primarily responsible for selling assets high? Keeping in mind, maybe you disagree, a lot of these assets not being sold high kind of results from things that transpired before Edu came in.
Yeah, I think Edu inherited a lot of the issues, didn't he? You kind of look at the players who haven't been sold for high. I don't know who you're really talking about. I mean, you weren't the position Arsenal were in with Ozil. They weren't going to get any money for Ozil. Mustafi, you're not going to get any money for Mustafi. Kolasinac, all these players who've been basically released, they're not going to get any money for them because of the stupid decisions that have been made before Edu in terms of how much money they were on, contracts they were given. So I don't think you can really blame him for doing that. In fact, I thought it was quite, he showed a ruthless side that Arsenal.
Emmy's fee looks fair at this point now, all things considered.
Which one, sorry?
Emmy's fee looks reasonable.
Yeah,
all things considered at this point.
Looks all right. Yeah, I think possibly they could have got more for him, but it was, he'd only had like 6 months at the top level of football then when they sold him. I mean, the Willock deal was fantastic. I'm not sure that was mainly down to Edu. I don't think you can really give him credit for that. You've got to give Willock credit for that remarkable 2 months he had. Had he not had those 2 months, I think Arsenal were looking at about 10 odd million for him. It's something that Arsenal have had to improve, and it's gone on way before Edu. Arsenal have been awful at selling for an awful long time now, and it's something they need to improve on. I think they are hopefully going to start to improve on that, and I think some of the deals that they've done recently with the loans, and they've not been putting obligations in them. People have looked at that and thought that's strange, but I don't think it's strange. I think they've kind of learned their lesson now, because the Willock one, if they'd put an obligation to sell in the Willock one, they probably would have got about 10 million quid for him at the time of doing that deal, because there's no way Newcastle in that January would have said, right, we'll pay you 30 million or whatever it is in the summer. So I think Arsenal are now looking at sending players out on loan, hoping they have a good, decent run in the team, get their value up, and then sell them. You look at Mavropanos, I think they kind of learned a lesson there as well. I think they could probably have got an awful lot more for Mavropanos had they not put that obligation in.
And Guendouzi, like how does that suit the selling team to put an obligation suits the team. It's more like a hedge, an option at a particular
kind of
price.
Guaranteed money in your accounts, isn't it? But it can work both ways, because if you do go and have a brilliant time of it, like Guendouzi now, if Arsenal do end up selling him for about 11 million quid, I think it's going to be. That's going to look like nowhere near as much money as they probably should have got for him. And so it can work both ways, yeah. But it's definitely an area that Arsenal need to sort out, and they need to get better at, because when you compare them to their rivals over the years, it's just miles behind. They've lost out on loads of money because of poor selling.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at Willock, Iwobi. I mean, you can't get two. I mean, those two deals are absolutely unreal, aren't they? The money they got for those two, Willock, Iwobi, and Oxlade-Chamberlain to Liverpool. Those three deals are certainly the three standout ones over the last sort of 5-6 years.
Yeah, I think that's our problem, though, is we can distinctly remember all the good sales we've made in very short order, because there hasn't been that many to go over. We're getting down close to the end here, so we're going to bang out some quick questions with Charles from everybody in the chat. The first one from Divyan. Wilshere's traveling with the team. Would he be the last resort signing if we don't sign anyone else in the midfield?
That's a question I get an awful lot. I can just say what I'm being told, and is that Arsenal continue to say that that's just it's not going to happen. They might end up springing a surprise, who knows, and they might be keeping it all completely under wraps and feeding us stuff information. But from people that I've spoken to, it's still very much he's just going there, staying fit, making up the numbers, and he won't be signing. So that's all I can say on that at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that would make most of us happy. I love Jack Wilshere as much as everybody else, but I'm in no hurry to see him back on the pitch at the Emirates.
If they were going to do it, they would have done it. They'd have done it on January 1st, wouldn't they? It was just they needed a midfielder the whole of January, and they'd been there for 6 weeks, 2 months. So if they were going to do it realistically, you'd think it would have been done as soon as January the 1st came around.
Sure. All right. The next one we got here is from our good friend Aston. What's up, Aston? It says, do you happen to know what the hell is going on with Ramsey at Juve? Apparently, he's turned down 4 Premier League teams. Could you also explain why he's our best midfielder of all time?
That's a dig at me, by the way, but go ahead. It's a good question. Otherwise,
I don't know how I can explain that because it's not true. I don't know what's going on with Aaron at Juve. I'm afraid no. It's just I was talking to my dad about him this morning. Actually, my dad rang me up just for a chat, and we were talking about Ramsey. And no, I mean it's just a shame it hasn't worked out for him in Italy, has it? And because basically my dad said to me this morning, he said, "Oh, I think we screwed Aaron over by pulling that contract offer." And it's like, well, yeah, but you look at it now and it's the right decision because if it had stayed or signed that money, he wouldn't have played much because he'd been injured pretty much the whole time he's been in Italy. So it was the right decision at the end of the day. But yeah, I hope he gets his move. I hope he comes back and I hope he has a successful time with it because I'm a massive, massive Aaron Ramsey fan.
Likewise, one of my favorites of all time. This next question, we're going to give to Mike. I think it's one he'd like to take on. This comes to us from Raggy. It says, did we ever find out who AFC Bell was?
Some of us did find out who he was, but we are never going to speak of it. But we also found out what he was, which was a fraud. And God forbid it somehow turns out to be Charles. I've just really dug my grave. But I think I'm safe in saying that. I think I'm safe in saying that it wasn't. Some of us did. It was kind of implied at an article from James McNicholas, which is a great article in The Athletic. If you go back and start to connect some dots, you might be able to figure out who it is. But it's not me. It's not the gerbil. But in any case, any more questions do we have?
Yeah, we've got a couple more quick ones. Looks like we've got just a couple minutes left here. We'll go to Bulgarian Gooner. Thoughts on the super agents and their growing influence in the game, obviously stemming from this month's Vlahovic nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but it's just the way of football. I don't think it's not new, is it? The super agents, it's been going on for an awful long time now, and a few certain people have way too much influence in the game. I don't think that's just not football though. It's in all industries, isn't it? You got a few very rich people controlling things and how the market works, and it's a shame. And I know an awful lot of agents who do an awful lot, good things and really care about their players. I'm not saying these super agents don't, but it's not great when certain few people have such a monopoly on a game.
Do you think, Charles, as well, that you're just talking about the changes to the game and the changes in the market now? Something that I have realised over maybe this past 2 or 3 years is there's been this constant sort of push for sell-on value is so important. Getting players in and selling them whilst they still have sell-on value. We've been a victim of that so much with aging players and running out of contracts, and we're still seeing it now with players like Alexander Lacazette. But do you think now that the market value has gone up for younger players and we're seeing less moves for people who are 27, 28, 29, like we maybe would have 5 years ago, where people in that age bracket of their late 20s would have been moving for major money? Now the shift is that people are investing in these young players much more now.
I think we definitely are, 100%. I think that shift's been pretty evident, and it was always sort of growing up, isn't it? 27, 28, that's the prime. That's when you sign your experienced players. But I think a lot of people are moving away from that now, because if you're signing someone at 27, given the money you have to pay players at the top level, and you give them a 4-year contract, you're basically spending huge amounts of money on someone you're not going to be able to get rid of, really. And if you are, you're going to lose a lot of money on it. So all the investment is going in youngsters, it's going in the academy, and Arsenal are doing it. And that's where the money is when it comes to player trading at the moment. And it is becoming very difficult to shift the older players on. And a lot of older players now are not wanting to move on anyway. They're kind of waiting until they become free transfers. It's something Arsene Wenger predicted a while ago, that you're going to see free transfers, players seeing out their contracts to become free. It was just going to become the norm, and I think we're seeing that now. We've seen it at Arsenal. We've seen it at a lot of clubs. The free transfer market is huge now, and players know if they can stay, they're going to be, they're going to have an awful lot of offers come the end of their contract. So it's difficult. It's very, very different. We've seen the shift, and a lot of the emphasis is on
the fee and wages. They're going to get the fee in their wages, or in a signing on bonus. Yeah. So it's literally your money or the club's.
But that's why I think you look at Arsenal and how they're handling youth products now, and how they're utilising the loan market. It's absolutely, there's been a massive change in it. The amount of players they're sending out on loan, and they're not just doing that to make it at Arsenal. They're doing that to raise their transfer value if they need to sell. You look at someone like Daniel Ballard and the way they've managed him the last couple of years, with the loan to Blackpool, then to Millwall, and his career is just really sort of going on. He's already now a very established championship player. He's an international player at Northern Ireland who plays regularly, and his transfer fee, even if he doesn't ever make it at Arsenal and doesn't make a single appearance, I think they're going to make a decent amount of money on Daniel Ballard now because of the way they've managed him. And he's a sort of, we're going to see more and more of this in terms of how they're trying to manage their young players. It's not just about trying to make it into the first team and being the next Smith Rowe and Saka. It's about becoming, an asset that Arsenal can sell for decent money, and that's how they're going to do it. I think you make more money on youth products now than you will on selling players in the mid-20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, potential is key. Speaking of making more money, what we need to do while we have 100 of you here, and I know that you are here to see Charles, but we would like you to put your eyes on one other quick thing for about 90 seconds while you're here. There's no better place you can put your money right now than to buy an entry in the Gooners versus Cancer raffle for what is, in my consideration, one of the best pieces of Arsenal memorabilia out there today. And you can get a signed shirt from the 4 heroes, the last second heroes from the Anfield 89 game-winning goal against Liverpool at Anfield. So here's a quick video about it with instructions, and it's all to raise money to try to find a cure and support families who are dealing with leukemia. So if you'll watch this real quick, we'll come back and say goodbye.
Good ball by Gibson. Finding Smith. The top, charging to the midfield. Thomas. It's up for grabs now. Thomas. Right at the end.
All right, so thanks for bearing with us on that. We are about 26% sold on entries. We're going to do the drawing as soon as there's 500 entries, and the entries are $25 a piece. You do not have to be in America to donate or to win. You can donate in your local currency. I think it works out to about 18 quid or so, but it's hopefully a great prize for you, and we're doing it for a great cause. And Charles, honestly, thank you for your support over the years. You donated to something to the raffle to help us raise money this year. You've donated to the cause before, and you've certainly spent your time and generously joined us both on our marathon pod that we did and the video that I've now chopped up and and used in a way I probably shouldn't have. But well, that sounded a lot worse than I meant it to. I meant on the podcast. But so is there any way for me to screw this relationship up further? Charles, where can we find you next, other than tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon on Dan Bailey TV?
Usual platforms. Yeah, got doing Daniel's show tomorrow. Also doing something with Andrew from Arsblog in the morning as well. Okay. That's not the regular podcast we're doing. He's doing a sort of special thing that's going out. I'm not sure when it's going out, but I'm joining him for that as well. So keep an eye out for that in the coming days or weeks. And then, yeah, I'll be all over usual stuff. My social media channels will be doing my YouTube as well. So keep your eyes peeled. And any news that happens, I will do my best to bring it to you. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have an exciting final few days.
Let's hope so. We'll get some final reinforcements. You can follow Charles on Twitter at Charles_Watts, just like you can see here on your screen. And just want to thank you again for your support, for coming on with us during such an important week. I won't call it a crazy or busy week, but appreciate you spending your time with us. Jared, Owen, love you guys. Thanks for being on and contributing to hopefully stopping me talking for the entire podcast, which for some reason today I just felt like doing.
Didn't work.
Yeah, it's been fun as always. And Charles, thank you to you. We know in general you're a busy guy, but especially in the month of January, I'm sure it's heightened quite a bit. So we appreciate you coming on and joining us for a chat as well.
No worries, guys. Always a pleasure.
And my son and I will be back at the Tolly the first week of April, so I'll hit you up and my son would love to say hi. So talk to you soon. Let's hope for some reinforcements. Just all we got to do is win 17 out of the next 17 games, and we're good. And come